In this video, I want to talk about the role of information in the global organization. The 21st century, that is, the early part of this era, has been characterized by a lot of change. The traditional business that used to be centered and headquartered in certain countries is now taking a turn for the global. Businesses have now been globalized, and the globalization of business has resulted in change of relationships between countries. China has emerged as a major economic power as manufacturing and production has been centered over there. But China itself is changing as well as it now focuses on more knowledge and information and research and development nowadays. Countries are forming trading blocs such as the EU, and all of this has led to the emerging influence of information based organizations. Organizations such as Apple, eBay, Google, and Facebook that used to be smaller companies, niche companies, have now taken on global roles. This new age, this information age, is built on SAN, where we rely on silicon chips to power our various devices, and data that has been generated by those devices and getting data to those devices is built on fiber optics. This information age is also borderless, resulting in a free flow and characterized by a free flow of communication, capital, organizations or corporations, and customers. Information systems have also been evolving with the times. The first era of information systems, that represents the 1950s to the 1970s, was characterized by taking information and data to the computer. Think of your large mainframes where information needed to be brought to the mainframe, needed to be brought to the computer for the processing to take place. The second era of information systems was where information work was provided to the employee. Think of your thin clients and your private networks, where you had dumb terminals and information was conveyed to those dumb terminals. The third era of information systems, the contemporary era of information systems, is characterized by taking information work to the customer or the stakeholders, characterized by the client-server environment. Now, information plays a large role in the organizational change management process and in the organizational change process because organizations are fundamentally goal seeking. They always seek to create goals and update goals and move towards these new goals. And information supports this goal seeking process. Information is used for an organization to evaluate its present performance. Information is also used as organizations try to set goals or achieve some desired performance. And information is used for an organization to help move itself from its current state to its desired state. And so information is a means of change for an organization. In terms of goal setting, information is used for an organization to anchor itself and to adjust itself to its contemporary organizational or industry environment. Information gets used in the planning process through the use of identification of demographic trends and the use of economic forecasts as an organization tries to plan for the future. Information also allows an organization to benchmark itself to its competitors. Information about competitors' actions or industry actions allow an organization to evaluate how it is supposed to be performing in the marketplace. Information also gets used by an organization to identify gaps. Problems that an organization might have can be identified where an organization might expect to perform a certain way, but its actual performance might not meet those expectations. An organization can keep score of its performance through both qualitative and quantitative methods. Quantitative metrics, like financial measures, might allow it to evaluate itself against the marketplace. Qualitative measures, such as customer reviews, tell it about its performance as well. A variety of other critical success factors and variables may be used by an organization to evaluate its performance. Other ways to identify gaps might be to use exception reports or routine reports to keep track of uh, the difference between expectations and actual performance. Information can be used to close the gap. Information may be used to actually formulate solutions to the problems that the organization might be facing at any point in time. Root cause analysis might allow an organization to use information to identify root causes of its problems. Information might be used to identify different alternatives and to evaluate the risks of different alternatives. Subsequently, information gets used to identify the alternatives and also analyze the different alternatives, examining the rewards or the benefits of an alternative versus the risks and the costs associated with those alternatives. Consequently, information is a means of change or moving an organization from its current state to its desired state. And information can be built into products and services offered by an organization. Marketing programs might allow an organization to collect information about customers, for instance, through the use of frequent flyer programs. Information technology can be used to improve service and customer service by through the use of call logs and feedback about the customer service provided. Employees can be empowered and by sharing information with them and giving them more freedom to make decisions based on that information. While information is a means of change and organizations are continually changing, it is the managers that actually implement the organizational work. And consequently, managers are the individuals that actually work with that information. Managerial work is actually very complicated. Managerial work is fragmented. Managers move from one task to another constantly. Managerial work is brief and intermittent because they get interrupted very, very frequently. Managerial work is also very fast paced and is more action oriented rather than contemplative and thinking. Consequently, communication related to managerial work has certain preferences and tendencies. Managers prefer oral communication and they rely on networks of employees to get information. These employees and peers form information sources and are ways of getting things done through uh, oral means versus formal systems. Formal systems are infrequently used. Formal systems and formal information systems are ways of getting confirming information rather than being the primary source of information. Consequently, a manager's information requirements are that they expect the relevant information and the expectations that they have of that information continually change. When we talk about characteristics of information, there are two characteristics that are important to point out. One is hardness and the other is richness. Hardness of information refers to the accuracy of that information. The hardness scale can vary from 1 to 10, where 1 refers to unidentified sources or ambiguous sources of information, where the data that is coming from that source or the information that is coming from that source is not extremely reliable. 10 refers to reliable and extremely accurate sources of information. When we think about the demand for information that a manager might have, this demand would vary with the hardness of information. If the information has a low hardness or exists on the scale between a 1 to a 5, a manager might require multiple sources to ensure the reliability of that information. On the other hand, if information is hard or highly reliable, a manager might require fewer sources of information. Information richness refers to the extent to which an information system resolves equivocality. Information richness varies on a scale from richest to leanest. Face to face is considered the richest form of communication, as in a face to face conversation, one is able to gather a lot of information from the information source. The leanest form of communication is numeric documents, as they don't tend to provide that context and richness in communication. Most information systems, in fact, tend to deliver lean information. One can ask the question whether this distinction between rich and lean media technology apply in today's world. Think of, for instance, about the social media technologies that we might use on a regular basis. Social media technologies are considered to be rich forms of communication through the use of emojis, emoticons, and so even lean technologies can convey rich information depending on how they are structured. Demand for information also varies with the responsibilities of a manager. An operational manager might only require short-term information, whereas a senior executive might require long-term, medium, and short-term information, depending on the responsibility that they have. Managers, however, face another problem, and that is they have to make a lot of decisions. Consequently, managers always satisfice or information satisfies, which is accepting the first satisfactory decision. Managers don't tend to make the best decisions. In fact, they don't have the time to go through all the information to make the best decisions. They collect enough information to make a satisfactory decision. And although this lowers the quality of decision making, this, however, increases the speed at which decisions can be made. If one thinks about organizational knowledge, a lot of components exist in the organizational knowledge space. One of which is knowing what, knowing how, knowing why, and finally caring why. All these components to organizational knowledge are important for a manager, and information plays a large part in ensuring that an organization's knowledge systems persist over time. This knowledge is usually captured in a variety of different types of information systems, sometimes in explicit information systems, sometimes in more tacit ways. One of the perennial problems in information systems is the problem of information integration. This is a problem that we talked about in the context of data also, which is that the data and information needs to be consolidated across disparate systems. This sort of information integration provides a comprehensive view for managers, but this is not as available as it should be. Some information systems do offer integrated interfaces to an organization's data warehouse. The data warehouse is a concept that we will be covering later on, but refers to an organization's systems where multiple sources of data are gathered and stored and related to each other. That concludes this brief discussion of the role of information in an organization.